So in this lecture, we will quickly learn how to clear floats. So in the last lecture, we created the problem that this red main header element here collapsed its height, which remember was because all of its child elements are right now floated. Okay? And so in order to fix that, we need to now clear those floats. And the easiest way of doing that, which is not the best way, but it is the easiest one, is to simply add another element here to the header and then clear the floats from there. So let's add a div here with the class of clear, and the name here doesn't really matter. Okay, and this element, let's keep it empty because we do not want any content in here, right? So if we give it a save, then nothing changed for now, which again is because now these two elements are floated and this one here is empty. And so it also doesn't have any effect. If we added some content here, then you see that it improved the situation a little bit. But of course, this is not what we want. So to visualize this, let's actually permanently give the main header some other color. And the way I do that is by simply declaring another one here afterwards. So the original one was this one, and then I can just write another one later, and so this one will overwrite the first one. So this way, later I can simply delete this entire line. Okay, but anyway, what I want to do now is to, of course, select that element that we just created here. So this one with the clear class. So select it like this, and then here we can use the clear property. And so on clear, we can use also left, right, and both. Now, if we only wanted to clear left floats, then here we can say clear left, and the same with right. But in this case, we have a left float and a right float, and so we want to clear both of them, and so we use both. And if we now save this, then our problem is indeed fixed. Great. Now, back in the day, we used to build all our layouts using float properties like this. So imagine now that we had a row and in there we had 4 columns. So we needed one element for each of these columns and we had them floated all side by side. Then in that situation, the height of the row, so of the parent element of the 4 columns, would collapse. And so then we would have to go in and create an empty div element like that in each of those situations. So that could happen like 10 or 20 times on a page, and so that would not be useful at all, right? And also, we didn't want to clutter up our HTML with all these empty divs. So that's just a bad practice. So let's actually remove this here and take a look at another technique that we can use. Now, before I'm doing that, just keep again in mind that building float layouts is kind of outdated. And so you do not need to understand 100% how all of this works, especially with the clear. But again, I find it important that you have at least some idea of how this works, and especially of this trick that I'm going to show you now, which is called the clear fix hack. So the clear fix hack is something that has been widely used for many, many years in the CSS community. And the reason for that is exactly to avoid having these kind of empty divs, just like I explained here before. So that's not good, and therefore someone came up with the clear fix hack. So the way that it works is that on the element that has the collapsed height, so in this case here on this header, we add a class which was usually called clearfix. So just like this. Okay, so we added the clearfix class there, and then here in the CSS, we selected that, and then we used a pseudo element, and in particular, the after pseudo element. And remember that what this one does is to basically create a new element which will be the last child element of the container. And so in a way, doing this is exactly the same as adding this empty div here manually, right? Because again, what this after pseudo element will do is to insert a brand new element at the very end of the container, which in this case is this header element. So this one here, because now we added the clearfix class to that element as well. And so now we can clear the floats on this one. So clear both. But now remember two particularities about the after pseudo element. So first of all, it only appears if we define something for the content property. Remember that? So in content, there needs to be something, even if it's just like empty text. And so this is enough. And then also by default, pseudo elements like after and before are inline elements. However, clearing floats like this only really works on a block level element. And so we set the display property on this element to block. And so with this, the problem should now be fixed as well. And indeed, there you go. So let's check that out quickly. And so here is that pseudo element that we just created. And so now the floats are being cleared here. So if we were to take this off, then you see that the heights are back to being collapsed. Okay, and that's it. So this is how we would clear floats in float layouts. So again, by using this clearfix class, which back in the day was being used all the time, and we called this the clearfix hack. All right, and so now next up, let's use this knowledge to build a very simple float layout in order to make our page look like this. So like the final demo that I have right here. Okay, so we can easily do that with floats. And so let's check it out now.